The orbital waste management system groaned under the unprecedented load. Hundreds of kilometers of twisted metal, fractured hull segments, and burnt-out component clusters drifted in a chaotic dance around Earth. Most observers saw nothing but garbage, the remnants of humanity's most devastating interstellar conflict. Jack Harper saw a possibility. His prosthetic hand, a gleaming carbon composite marvel that spoke of both advanced engineering and personal sacrifice, traced holographic outlines across the observation deck's display. Each piece of debris told a story. Here, a plasma conduit from a destroyer. There, a fragment of an energy shield that had once protected human colonies. The Xelarian Imperium thought they were delivering a final insult, but they had no concept of human resourcefulness. The memory of the war was still fresh. 5 years ago, humanity had been pushed to the brink of extinction. Their colonies scattered, their fleet decimated, their hope hanging by the thinnest of threads. The Xelarian assault had been relentless, a technological steamroller that crushed everything in its path. Entire planetary systems had fallen. Millions of human lives reduced to statistical casualties in a galactic ledger. But they hadn't been defeated, not completely. Another shipment incoming. A technician's voice crackled over the comm system. Jack didn't turn. He'd been watching these deliveries for weeks, mapping each piece, understanding its potential. Emily Rodriguez entered the observation deck, her stride purposeful. Unlike Jack's military-precise movements, she moved with the restless energy of a scientist who saw the world as an endless puzzle waiting to be solved. Her neural interface, a thin silver band barely visible against her dark hair, flickered with complex data streams only she could fully interpret. "The material science team thinks I'm crazy," she said without preamble. Her fingers danced across a holographic interface, spinning three-dimensional models of the debris. But there's something unique about this Xelarian alloy. It's not just a metal. It's adaptive. Jack raised an eyebrow. After losing his entire special operations team in the final battle of the Proxima campaign, he'd learned to listen when Emily spoke. She wasn't just brilliant. She was the kind of genius that appeared once in a generation. "Adaptive how?" he asked. Emily's display zoomed into a microscopic view of a metal fragment. What looked like random molecular structures began to shift, almost imperceptibly. "Watch," she murmured. The metal seemed to breathe. Molecular bonds realigned. Energy signatures fluctuated in patterns that defied conventional understanding. Jack had seen countless technological miracles during the war, but this was different. This was alive. "The Xelarians didn't just build ships," Emily continued. "They grew them. Each vessel is part machine, part organic system. This metal, it's a communication network. Every piece talks to every other piece." Outside the observation deck, massive robotic arms continued sorting the debris. Kilometers of twisted metal, burnt-out energy cores, and fractured hull segments created a graveyard of technological dreams. To the orbital management team, this was waste. To Jack and Emily, it was an opportunity. "They meant this as a final humiliation," Jack said, his voice low. His prosthetic hand clenched unconsciously, the synthetic muscles responding to his emotional state, dropping our own defeat around our planet, showing us how thoroughly we were crushed. Emily's lips curved into a dangerous smile. They have no idea who they're dealing with. The war had changed humanity. Those who survived weren't broken. They were tempered, refined. Every lost colony, every destroyed ship, every sacrificed generation had built a collective rage and determination that the Xelarian Imperium couldn't comprehend. Jack's neural link pinged. A message from General Karen Williams, head of Earth's reconstruction efforts. Most military leadership had been skeptical of unconventional approaches. Williams was different. She understood that survival meant reimagining everything. Initial material analysis complete. The message read, "Proceed with prototype development. Full clearance granted." Emily was already pulling up structural schematics, her mind racing faster than most computers could process. "We're not just going to rebuild," she said. "We're going to redefine what's possible." Outside, the cosmic junkyard continued its silent drift. Millions of pieces of advanced technology, discarded like trash. But within those fragments lived the seeds of humanity's greatest revenge. Not through destruction, through innovation. The Excelarian Imperium had given them scrap metal. They would build a weapon beyond imagination. The underground research facility hummed with a different kind of energy. It wasn't the sterile, controlled environment of traditional scientific laboratories. This was a crucible of human determination, where discarded geniuses and battle-hardened veterans converged with a singular purpose. Jack Harper stood before a massive holographic display, surrounded by a team that looked more like a band of scientific rebels than a conventional research group. To his left, Dr. Marcus Chen, a materials engineer who had been blacklisted after challenging mainstream design theories. To his right, Lieutenant Sarah Rodriguez, Emily's sister and a veteran combat engineer who understood the brutal mathematics of survival. "Every piece tells a story," Marcus said, manipulating the holographic representation of the Excelarian metal fragments. The display responded to his touch like a living thing, molecular structures twisting and reforming in real time. "These aren't just alloys. They're a communication network." Sarah leaned in, her cybernetic eye, a replacement from a near-fatal encounter during the Proxima campaign, scanning the data with inhuman precision. "Communication implies intelligence," she muttered. "The Excelarians didn't just build machines. They engineered living systems." Emily's fingers danced across a secondary interface, cross-referencing molecular patterns with historical combat data. Fragments of ship designs, energy transfer mechanisms, and adaptive combat technologies began to form a complex mosaic. "Look at this energy transfer mechanism," she called out. A section of the hologram zoomed in, revealing intricate molecular pathways that seemed to defy conventional physics. "Traditional metal conducts electricity. This stuff doesn't just conduct, it anticipates, it remembers." The team had been working in shifts, pushing the boundaries of materials science and theoretical engineering. They were the outcasts, the dreamers who had survived when more conventional approaches had failed. Each member carried scars, physical and emotional, from the war. Jack's prosthetic hand traced a complex pattern on the display. The metal fragments began to align, showing potential structural configurations that seemed to emerge organically. "We're not just going to build a ship," he said, his voice carrying the weight of multiple lost campaigns. "We're going to create a living weapon." Marcus Chen pulled up additional research data. "The molecular structure suggests a form of distributed intelligence," he explained. "Each fragment can communicate, adapt, and reconfigure based on environmental inputs. It's not just adaptive technology. It's almost like a collective consciousness." Lieutenant Rodriguez scoffed. "Sounds like something out of a science fiction novel." "After what we've seen in the war," Emily responded, "I'll take science fiction over conventional thinking any day." The facility itself was a testament to human resilience. Located deep beneath the ruins of a research complex destroyed during the Excelarian invasion, it had been rebuilt piece by piece. Salvaged equipment mixed with cutting-edge prototypes. Walls lined with battle-damaged components stood alongside holographic displays showing impossible technical designs. Jack understood something fundamental that the Excelarian Imperium had missed. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't in its initial resources, but in its ability to adapt, to reimagine, to transform defeat into opportunity. "We need a test platform," he announced. The team fell silent, understanding the implications. A test platform meant moving from theoretical research to practical application. Sarah Rodriguez pulled up schematics of their most advanced experimental designs. "The standard adaptive frameworks won't work," she said. "We need something that can fundamentally reshape itself in real time. A system that doesn't just respond to threats, but anticipates them." Emily's eyes lit up with a dangerous excitement. What if the ship itself becomes the weapon? Not just a platform that carries weapons, but a living system that is the weapon. The holographic display began to shift. Molecular structures realigned. Potential configurations emerge. Hull designs that could become weapon systems, defensive capabilities that could reshape themselves faster than any targeting computer could track. Marcus Chen watched in wonder. "We're not just engineering a ship," he whispered. "We're creating a new form of life." Jack Harper's prosthetic hand clenched. The fragments of metal around them, discarded by the Xelarian Imperium as worthless, began to pulse with an impossible energy. They were going to make the universe remember humanity's name, not through surrender, but through reimagination. The first prototype emerged from the depths of their underground facility like a fevered dream of engineering. It wasn't a ship in any traditional sense. It was a living system that defied every known principle of spacecraft design. Emily Rodriguez stood before the massive construct, her hand hovering just inches from its surface. The metal seemed to breathe, molecular structures shifting and realigning with each passing moment. Diagnostic screens around the prototype flickered with impossible data streams, patterns that suggested something more than mere machinery. "This is beyond adaptive technology," she murmured to Jack Harper, who watched with a combat veteran's critical eye. "We're looking at a fundamental reimagining of what a spacecraft can be." The team had nicknamed the prototype the Phoenix Reflamer, a name that carried the weight of humanity's resilience. What looked like a random assemblage of metallic fragments could instantaneously reconfigure itself. Weapon systems didn't just deploy. They grew from the ship's very structure. Defensive capabilities morphed faster than any targeting system could comprehend. Dr. Marcus Chen worked at a nearby console, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. "The molecular communication is exponentially more complex than our initial models," he reported. "Each fragment is essentially a living neural network. They're not just communicating, they're learning." Lieutenant Sarah Rodriguez ran a series of stress simulations. The results were beyond anything they had anticipated. The prototype could reshape its entire structural configuration in milliseconds. A weapon system here could become a defensive shield there. Hull plating could transform into propulsion units. It was as if the ship itself was a living, breathing organism with infinite potential. Jack understood the deeper implications. During the war, humanity had always been reactive, struggling to respond to Xelarian technological superiority. This was different. This was a proactive system that could anticipate and counter threats before they fully materialized. "We're not just building a weapon," he said quietly. "We're creating a new form of technological life." The first full system test was scheduled with a mixture of anticipation and terror. The team had worked for months, pouring every ounce of their scientific expertise and collective rage into this moment. Failure was not an option. Emily initiated the primary activation sequence. The prototype began to hum, a sound that was part mechanical, part something entirely new. Diagnostic screens erupted with data streams that seemed to dance and pulse with an almost organic rhythm. "Energy signatures are off the charts," Sarah called out, monitoring the external sensors. "It's like the ship is breathing." Molecular structures began to realign. What looked like random metal fragments started to form interconnected networks. Weapon systems emerged from what moments ago appeared to be simple structural plating. Defensive capabilities twisted and morphed with a fluidity that defied rational explanation. Dr. Chen's voice was barely a whisper. "It's beautiful," he said. The prototype represented more than a technological breakthrough. It was a statement, a declaration that humanity would not just survive, but reimagine what survival meant. Jack remembered the devastation of the war. Entire human colonies reduced to ash. Millions of lives lost. The Xelarian Imperium had believed they could break humanity's spirit. They were wrong. "Initiating advanced configuration test," Emily announced. The ship began to change, not in any predictable way. It was as if the very concept of a fixed design had been shattered. Weapon systems bloomed like deadly flowers. Armor plates shifted and merged. Propulsion capabilities reconfigured themselves in patterns that would make traditional engineers weep. "This is beyond anything in our previous models," Marcus reported, his voice a mixture of scientific wonder and barely contained excitement. Lieutenant Rodriguez brought up combat simulations. The results were staggering. This prototype could adapt faster than any known targeting system could track. It wasn't just a ship. It was a living weapon that could respond to threats before they fully materialized. Jack watched the transformation, seeing more than just technological potential. He saw humanity's answer to those who believed they could be conquered. As the final configuration test completed, the prototype seemed to pause, as if taking a breath. The metal surfaces shimmered with an impossible energy, molecular structures dancing in complex patterns that suggested something more than mere machinery. They had done more than build a ship. They had created a weapon of hope. The Excelarian scout ship approached with the arrogance of a predator who believed the hunt was already over. Its advanced sensor array swept across the region of space where the Phoenix Reclaimer waited, a region that appeared to be nothing more than scattered orbital debris. Captain Alina Reyes sat in the prototype's control center, her hands hovering just above interfaces that seemed to anticipate her thoughts. Around her, the ship's interior pulsed with an energy that defied conventional understanding. Diagnostic screens showed molecular structures realigning in complex patterns, preparing for engagement. "Incoming Solarian patrol vessel," Lieutenant Sarah Rodriguez called out. Her cybernetic eye tracked the approaching ship with inhuman precision. Configuration Delta 7. Standard reconnaissance pattern. Jack Harper's voice came through the communication link. He was monitoring from the ground control facility, years of combat experience giving him an intuitive sense of the coming engagement. "Remember," he said, "this isn't just a test. This is a statement." The Excelarian scout continued its approach, completely unaware of the technological marvel waiting to be unleashed. Its sensor arrays swept methodically, categorizing what appeared to be nothing more than space debris. Advanced targeting systems saw nothing of consequence, just random metallic fragments drifting in the void. Inside the Phoenix Reclaimer, Emily Rodriguez worked her control interfaces like a concert pianist. Each touch sent ripples through the ship's adaptive molecular structure. "Preparing initial engagement protocols," she murmured. The scout ship was close now, close enough that its weapon systems began to power up, a standard procedure for potential threat assessment. Its energy signatures suggested complete confidence. Another meaningless patrol. Another moment of galactic dominance. Then everything changed. The scattered metal fragments began to move. Not randomly. Not mechanically. But with a purpose that suggested something more than mere machinery. Molecular structures realigned with impossible speed. What moments ago looked like meaningless debris suddenly began to take shape. "Contact imminent," Sarah announced. The Excelarian crew's first indication that something was wrong came when their targeting systems suddenly went haywire. Sensor readings became impossible. Threat assessment algorithms crashed and reset. The Phoenix Reclaimer wasn't just a ship. It was a living weapon that could reshape itself faster than any computer could comprehend. Weapon systems emerged from what had appeared to be simple hull plating. Defensive capabilities twisted and morphed with a fluidity that defied rational explanation. Where conventional spacecraft had fixed designs, this vessel was liquid potential, changing, adapting, becoming whatever was necessary to survive. The scout ship fired its primary energy weapon, a blast that would have vaporized conventional spacecraft. The Phoenix Reclaimer simply absorbed it. More than that, the ship's molecular structure broke down the energy, redistributed it, and used it to power its own systems. What should have been a destroying blast became fuel. Energy absorption at 92% efficiency, Emily reported, a hint of scientific excitement in her voice. The Excelarian crew's confusion turned to panic. Their most advanced targeting systems couldn't lock onto a target that was constantly changing. Weapon systems that were active moments ago disappeared, only to reappear in completely different configurations. Jack's voice came through the communication link. Defensive pattern Omega. Show them what humanity can do. The Phoenix Reclaimer began its counterattack. But it wasn't a traditional assault. It was a technological ballet of destruction. Weapon systems emerged from molecular restructuring. Defensive capabilities twisted and morphed faster than the Accelerian ship could comprehend. 7 minutes. That's how long the engagement lasted. When it was over, the Accelerian scout ship was completely disabled. Not destroyed. Disabled. Every system surgically neutralized with a precision that suggested something more than mere technological superiority. A message of absolute capability. A warning. Humanity was back, and they were done being victims. Lieutenant Rodriguez's final report was clinical in its simplicity. Engagement complete. 0 human casualties. Total Accelerian system neutralization achieved. Emily looked at the diagnostic screens. The ship's molecular structure was already healing itself, redistributing energy, preparing for whatever might come next. Jack's voice came through one last time. "Welcome back," he said simply. The universe had just changed. The quantum communication networks erupted with a message that would reshape galactic politics forever. A single Accelerian scout ship, one of their most advanced reconnaissance vessels, completely neutralized without a single human casualty. In the High Council chambers of the Accelerian Imperium, silence descended like a physical weight. Grand Strategist Krelak stood before the holographic display, his crystalline exoskeleton shifting with barely contained rage. The transmission played again, and again. Each viewing made the defeat more incomprehensible. "Impossible," whispered Coordinator Vexna, her neural tendrils coiling in agitation. Human technology couldn't have advanced this far, not after the war. But the evidence was undeniable. Sensor logs, communication records, tactical analysis. Every piece of data told the same impossible story. A ship, if it could even be called a ship, that defied every known principle of space combat. Across the galaxy, other species watched and listened. The Moravian Confederacy saw an opportunity. Their diplomatic envoys began subtle communications with human representatives, probing the edges of this new technological marvel. The silicon-based Krelitheri ran advanced simulations, trying to understand the fundamental breakthrough that allowed such adaptive capabilities. Back on Earth, the reaction was different. The underground research facility became a hub of controlled chaos. Emily Rodriguez stood before a massive holographic display, watching as reports from multiple star systems began to stream in. Each transmission brought new details about the Phoenix Reclaimer's unprecedented performance. "It's more than a technological breakthrough," she told Jack Harper, who was reviewing strategic analyses. "It's a complete reimagining of space combat doctrine." Jack's prosthetic hand traced complex patterns on the display. Years of military experience allowed him to see beyond the immediate tactical victory. This was a message, a declaration of humanity's return to the galactic stage. Lieutenant Sarah Rodriguez managed the incoming communications. Reports from human colonies that had been occupied, from resistance groups that had been forced underground, began to change. There was a new tone. Hope. Real hope. "The psychological impact is just as significant as the technological one," she reported. "Our people are starting to believe we can fight back." Dr. Marcus Chen worked on the scientific implications. The molecular adaptive technology they had developed wasn't just a weapon system. It was a complete paradigm shift in understanding how technology could interact with its environment. "We've essentially created a living system," he explained to the team. "Not just a ship. A technological organism that can learn, adapt, and respond faster than any known computational system." The Accelerian response was predictable. Denial first, then escalation. 3 additional scout ships were dispatched to the region where the first encounter had occurred. Their mission: investigate, neutralize, and destroy any human technological anomalies. Emily watched their approach with a dangerous smile. "They still don't understand," she murmured. The quantum communication networks began to buzz with anticipation. Multiple species were now tracking the potential engagement. What had been a single encounter was now becoming something more, a potential turning point in galactic history. Jack understood the deeper implications. This wasn't just about technological superiority. This was about restoring humanity's place in the universe, about proving that being defeated wasn't the same as being destroyed. "Prepare the Phoenix Reclaimer," he commanded. The research facility hummed with an energy that was part technological, part something more primal. Humanity's collective rage, its unbreakable spirit, its refusal to be erased. As the Xelarian scout ships approached, the scattered orbital debris began to move. Not randomly. With purpose. With intelligence. The universe was about to learn a fundamental lesson about human resilience. Defeat was not the end. It was just the beginning. The Phoenix Reclaimer became more than a ship. It became a symbol of hope. Resistance cells on occupied human colonies watched the quantum communication feeds with a mixture of disbelief and rising excitement. What had been whispered conversations in hidden bunkers now became bold declarations. Humanity was fighting back. Captain Alina Reyes guided the ship through its most complex mission yet, a systematic disruption of Xelarian supply lines. Each engagement was a carefully choreographed dance of technological innovation. The ship didn't just fight, it transformed the very nature of space combat. Their first major operation targeted a critical Xelarian logistics hub in the Proxima sector. What appeared to be a straightforward assault quickly became something far more intricate. Approaching primary target, Lieutenant Sura Rodriguez announced. Her cybernetic eye scanned multiple tactical displays, tracking potential threat vectors with inhuman precision. Xelarian defense grid is at full strength. 16 orbital platforms. Comprehensive energy shielding. Emily Rodriguez worked her control interfaces, her fingers dancing across adaptive molecular displays that seemed to breathe with technological potential. "Initiating adaptive infiltration protocol," she responded. The Phoenix Reclaimer began to change. Its molecular structure shifted, breaking down and reforming in patterns that defied conventional understanding. Where a moment ago there had been a recognizable ship configuration, now there was something else entirely. Fragments of its structure began to separate, each piece becoming a separate but interconnected system. Jack Harper's voice came through the communication link from Mission Control. "Remember," he said, "we're not just attacking. We're sending a message." The Xelarian defense platforms detected the approach but couldn't classify the threat. Targeting systems went haywire. Sensor arrays crashed and reset. What should have been a straightforward defensive engagement became a technological nightmare. The ship's fragments began to interact with the Xelarian infrastructure, not through traditional weapon systems, but by fundamentally rewriting the communication protocols of their defensive grid. "Energy manipulation at 97% efficiency," Emily reported, a hint of scientific excitement in her voice. One by one, the Xelarian orbital platforms went dark. Not destroyed. Neutralized. Their systems surgically dismantled from the inside out. It was less an attack and more a technological lobotomy. Lieutenant Rodriguez's tactical analysis was clinical in its precision. Total platform neutralization achieved. 0 human casualties. Complete systemic shutdown. But this was more than a single engagement. This was a strategic campaign of technological rebellion. Each mission became more audacious. They liberated human colonies still under Xelarian occupation. They disrupted supply lines with surgical precision. They struck at the most vulnerable points of an empire that had grown complacent in its perceived victory. The adaptive technology allowed them to be everywhere and nowhere. A weapon one moment, a communications hub the next, a stealth vessel that could slip through the most advanced detection grids. Dr. Marcus Chen analyzed the broader implications. "We're not just fighting," he told the team during a strategy session. "We're fundamentally redesigning the concept of space warfare." The psychological impact was just as significant as the technological one. Human resistance cells that had been forced underground began to emerge. Colonies that had been occupied for years started to show signs of organized rebellion. Jack understood the deeper strategy. This wasn't about total destruction. This was about hope, about showing humanity that they could fight back. That defeat was not the same as extinction. Each mission is a message, he would tell the team. We're not just attacking. We're proving that humanity cannot be erased. The quantum communication networks began to change. Reports of human resistance began to multiply. What had been isolated pockets of rebellion became a coordinated movement. The Phoenix Reclaimer moved through space like a living weapon, each engagement more complex than the last, each mission a testament to human innovation and resilience. Silurian strategists began to understand the true nature of their mistake. They hadn't just underestimated a species. They had awakened a technological revolution. The universe was about to change, and humanity would be the ones writing the new rules. The heart of Silurian space burned with the fury of 1,000 dying stars. The combined fleet of the Silurian Imperium assembled in what they believed would be humanity's final reckoning. Thousands of vessels stretched across the void, a metallic tapestry of technological might that had conquered entire civilizations. Sensor arrays pulsed, weapon systems charged, the absolute certainty of victory reflected in every command deck. They were wrong. Captain Alina Reyes guided the Phoenix Reclaimer through the vast expanse of space. Around her, the ship's interior pulsed with an energy that defied conventional understanding. Molecular structures realigned with each breath, each thought, each potential threat. Silurian main fleet approaching, Lieutenant Sarah Rodriguez announced. Her cybernetic eye tracked multiple threat vectors simultaneously. 63 primary battle cruisers, 97 support vessels, comprehensive energy shielding. Emily Rodriguez worked her control interfaces like a symphony conductor. Each touch sent ripples through the ship's adaptive molecular structure, initiating comprehensive engagement protocol. She responded, her voice calm despite the magnitude of the coming battle. Jack Harper's voice came through the communication link. Years of military strategy condensed into a single, simple command. Show them what humanity can do. The Phoenix Reclaimer began to change. Not in any predictable way. It was as if the very concept of a fixed design had been shattered. The ship didn't just prepare for battle. It became the battle itself. Molecular structures twisted and reformed. Weapon systems bloomed like deadly flowers. Armor plates shifted and merged in patterns that would make traditional engineers weep. Where conventional spacecraft had rigid designs, this vessel was liquid potential, changing, adapting, becoming whatever was necessary to survive. The Silurian fleet's first salvo was devastating. Enough firepower to obliterate entire planetary systems. Weapon emissions that could strip the atmosphere from a dozen worlds. The Phoenix Reclaimer simply absorbed it. More than that, the ship's molecular structure broke down the incoming energy, redistributed it, and used it to power its own systems. What should have been a destroying blast became fuel. Energy absorption at 99.7% efficiency, Emily reported, a hint of scientific wonder in her voice. The battle became something beyond traditional space combat. It was a technological symphony of destruction and adaptation. The Phoenix Reclaimer moved through the Silurian fleet like a living weapon. Not destroying. Neutralizing. Surgical. Precise. Entire battle groups found their systems surgically dismantled. Communication networks collapsed. Weapon systems became inert. Defensive capabilities turned into vulnerabilities. Dr. Marcus Chen, monitoring from the ground control facility, watched in scientific amazement. "We're not just fighting," he murmured. "We're rewriting the fundamental principles of space warfare." The Silurian command structure began to collapse. Panic replaced strategic thinking. Their most advanced vessels, the pinnacle of their technological might, became nothing more than floating debris. Jack understood the deeper strategy. This wasn't about total destruction. This was about sending a message, about proving that humanity could not be erased. "We are not victims," he said quietly. "We are evolution." Hours passed. What should have been an impossible engagement became a systematic dismantling of the most powerful fleet in galactic history. The quantum communication networks erupted with impossible reports. Human resistance cells watched in disbelief. Other galactic civilizations found their understanding of warfare fundamentally challenged. Lieutenant Rodriguez's final tactical report was clinical in its simplicity. Total Solarian fleet neutralization achieved. 0 human casualties. Complete systemic shutdown. As the battle concluded, the Phoenix Reclaimer continued to transform. Molecular structures healing. Systems redistributing energy. Preparing for whatever might come next. Emily looked at the diagnostic screens. The ship was more than a weapon. It was a living testament to human potential. Jack's voice came through one last time. "Welcome home," he said simply. The universe had just changed forever. Humanity was no longer just surviving. They were leading. The quantum communication networks carried a message that would redefine galactic civilization. Humanity was back. In the months following the decisive engagement, the universe underwent a fundamental transformation. What had been a story of survival became a narrative of technological renaissance. The Phoenix Reclaimer was more than a ship. It was proof that true strength wasn't about initial resources, but about the ability to adapt, innovate, and persist. Jack Harper stood before the United Earth Council, surrounded by representatives from liberated human colonies and emerging diplomatic missions. The chamber was filled with a mixture of military leaders, scientific pioneers, and political strategists, all united by a singular vision. "We are not conquerors," he said, his prosthetic hand resting on a holographic display that showed the adaptive molecular technologies they had developed. "We are architects of a new future." Emily Rodriguez presented the scientific breakthrough. Years of research had transformed what the Solarian Imperium had considered worthless scrap metal into a fundamental reimagining of technological potential. Each molecular structure told a story of human resilience. Dr. Marcus Chen explained the broader implications. "This isn't just a technological advancement," he told the assembled representatives. "This is a complete paradigm shift in understanding how technology can interact with its environment. We've essentially created living systems that can learn, adapt, and respond faster than any known computational method." Diplomatic envoys from other galactic civilizations began to arrive. The Moravian Confederacy, the Krell-Theory silicon-based collectives, species that had watched humanity's near extinction, now sought to understand their remarkable resurrection. Lieutenant Sarah Rodriguez managed the incoming communications. Each transmission brought new opportunities. Colonies that had been occupied for years were now being liberated. Human resistance cells emerged from underground, no longer fighting for survival, but for renewal. The Phoenix Reclaimer became more than a technological marvel. It became a symbol of hope. Scientific institutions around Earth began studying the adaptive molecular technologies. Research facilities that had been destroyed during the war were rebuilt with a new purpose. Universities established entire departments dedicated to understanding the breakthrough. "We're not just rebuilding," Emily would tell her research teams. "We're reimagining everything." Jack understood the deeper strategy. This wasn't about revenge. This was about showing that defeat was not the same as extinction, that humanity's greatest strength had always been its ability to transform challenges into opportunities. Solarian diplomatic missions, what remained of their once mighty imperium, began to seek negotiation. Their technological superiority had been completely dismantled, their most advanced fleet reduced to floating debris. The first interstellar conference was held on a neutral space station. Representatives from multiple species gathered to understand the fundamental shift that had occurred. Dr. Chen presented their findings. The adaptive molecular technologies weren't just a weapon system. They were a completely new approach to understanding technological potential. Living systems that could learn, adapt, and respond with unprecedented speed and complexity. Humanity has always been about potential, Jack told the assembled representatives. About turning what others see as limitations into opportunities. The economic implications were staggering. Colonies that had been forced underground began to emerge. Trade routes that had been blocked for years reopened. Human engineering firms became the most sought-after consultants in the galaxy. Emily Rodriguez continued to push the boundaries of their research. Each breakthrough was more remarkable than the last. Adaptive technologies that could be applied to everything from medical systems to planetary infrastructure. The quantum communication networks began to change. Reports of human innovation multiplied. What had been isolated pockets of resistance became a coordinated movement of technological renaissance. Jack and Emily looked out over the Earth from the research facility's observation deck. The planet that had been nearly destroyed was now the center of a technological revolution. "We're not just surviving," Emily said quietly. "We're leading." The universe had changed, and humanity would be the ones writing the new rules. Not through conquest, but through innovation, through resilience, through an unbreakable spirit that refused to be defined by defeat.